Walla, 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 walla. You see that kind of turn? I'm talking about, man. Yo, more boggers, give me a little some of that gangster shit. Let's play with it.
Check, 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 check. All right, there we go. So it's working. Yeah. Okay. Damn, last night was an interesting night. Yo, for those of you that didn't know it, I was able to catch Break Room 411, their live stream this morning. It was kind of like a late, or early morning scroll for me, but yeah, late night scroll for folks in the East Coast, right? And it was pretty interesting. It was a good conversation. It wasn't really something I was totally expecting the topic, but it was actually ended up being pretty good. It was a real conversation. You could say that. And so that was really cool. I appreciate that. But what happened before that was this vice presidential debate. And although, in contrast to the presidential debate, it wasn't the same type of, how can I say this, energy, obviously, because Trump is just a disaster on wheels, and Kamala Harris is really a prosecutor and really, a sharp individual, used to, how can I say this, communicating strongly, right, and clearly, right, and effectively getting her points across. Watching JD Vance and Waltz was a different experience. But I didn't assume to really know. It's not even necessary to assume. I liked Waltz's style in general because I know I'm familiar with the part of the country he's from, so I can see kind of. I already have a glimpse into what people are like in that part of the country. So, I already kind of liked his style in terms of being a genuine person. But JD Vance, I already thought he's slimeballish, offensive, um, lack of care when speaking, um, a very condescending type of speaker, maybe without even knowing it. I have no clue. But I'm very sure a lot of people find JD Vance form of speech condescending, like a way that you talk down to people, not talk to people or communicate back and forth with people, but kind of like he wants to talk down to you um, when he really doesn't know much. And I think that was my general feeling. And then when the debate came, I thought it would be different. It wasn't different for me. It was new because I got a chance to see them debate and only them discuss things. So in that case, it was very new for me. But I think I learned a lot more from this second debate and this presidential debate, vice presidential debate. And yeah, I gotta say this. Um, Waltz handled himself very well, um, responsibly, responsibly because he's on the global stage. Everybody's watching him, so he's going to be an example for everyone else. So a real leader understands that, right? They don't take things personal, although for the everyday person could take a lot of what JD Vance was saying as personal, condescending. So I like the way Waltz dealt with it because he stayed on topic, stayed in the debate, um, showed that he was doesn't have to be a perfect person, um, that it's not about that. You don't either. We're talking about being good people, reasonably good people at the very least, and that if you have good people that show up on time, communicate with you respectfully, um, and genuinely identify with your life, um, that's a great thing. That's leadership. And because there's no perfect leaders, but there are great leaders. You see what I mean? And there's horrible leaders too. You see, so but there's no perfect ones in terms of their own lives. They make mistakes and they do things, but a good leader, admits their mistakes. And there you have it with Waltz again. Waltz admitted that he said he was in Asia 1 month at one time, but he was in Asia the month before in the same exact place. He said, it's kind of sad to think that you can care about that. A guy misses the date. I can't remember where I was 30 years ago exactly. I know roughly the it was summertime. I know roughly it was around this August, September, blah blah blah. So I was surprised that was a sticking point for anybody. Like, shade, y'all. He don't know what month 30 years ago he was in China. Why don't he find his plane ticket before he tells anybody about it whatsoever? Although he has photos there, it looks like summertime. Uh, I don't know. It was the same year. Yeah, the photograph says this year. Let me look up that year. It says this town, or it looks like this giant building everybody knows in the center of town. And the yeah, it looks like China, but can't be sure because he said a different. He didn't know exactly what date. I don't know, but that's the time of day. There's kind of a double standard in how we look at everyday Americans. And I think Trump and JD Vance represent that inherent right to have a double standard. That means not really work that hard. Let me tell you something. I respect people that can go, that maybe uh, join the military to improve themselves. Because you're not always going to fight wars now. Sometimes you're just going to improve yourself. Sometimes you ain't got no other options and you ain't going to be shit anyway. I mean, as far as the system allows it, as far as the assistance. And sometimes for some people, the military is a way to really improve themselves, become disciplined, learn several different trades, get physically fit, and help somebody else. You know, for a lot of people, the military is like that. So I respect that. I mean, I'm talking about human to human. You have to respect that because this person, at least for 4 years of their life, had to apply themselves every day. But that doesn't mean there's not some shitheads that go to the military. That doesn't mean that some people weren't just a waste, or that doesn't mean anything. You really got to look into it and be willing to sit and get to know people and hear their experiences. It's a personal endeavor. It's not unilateral. So, yeah, so I understood they both been in the military, but I just think JD Vance takes it in a way that nobody else, most people don't take it. Most people take it as they respect that they have the right to be in the military, and they don't use that to mean that they're anything special or better than you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got friends that's been in the military, uh, and guess what? They move on to do a lot of other great things. But I don't think JD Vance really moved on the same way a lot of other people moved on. And people say he have like a zaddy. Like, people say he was basically the profession that he had required like little responsibility, little other preparation, that it was kind of like given. So we'll see. Hey, Andrea, what's up? All right. So look, did you see the debate? Woo! It was good. I liked this debate. So let me just go. Okay, this is 3 hours ago. Let me go into some of the highlights here. Um, okay, let me check this one out. We could go to the fact checking first. Let's go to the fact checking. That might be more enjoyable. You see something here? Yeah. How's your day, Andrea? I hope it's going well. What is it? Morning time? What time is it where you at? Is it's 12 o'clock where you at, or 1 o'clock p.m.? Yeah, because it's 7:33 over here. Oh no, that would be one. It's 11 a.m. where you at? Something like that, Andrea. Okay. So did JD sleep his way to the top? I mean, I just think the way he talks, I put it to you like this. What makes JD Vance think he has applied himself more than Tim Walz in his life? What makes him think that Tim Walz hasn't worked much harder? 1233 worked much harder than him on the day to day. When I look at JD Vance, because I'm a grown man and I know what hard work is, and I know what hard work is in the types of jobs that in some types of jobs that most people don't want to know, period. Like, digging holes in the ground with a shovel for months. Shovel gravel, you know what I'm saying? And more things, I don't, I don't, I can look at somebody and kind of get an idea of who is, when it comes to ready to work step by step with you, side by side with you. Tim Walsh just comes off as like a guy who's willing to do that. JD Vance comes off like a guy who doesn't even think he has to, you know? And the way that he speaks, the tone of his voice, very passive aggressive, manipulative, you know what I mean? Like he's trying to come off passive. He's talking. That was his nice talk that he gave us yesterday. But he will be saying things that shows that he wants to talk down to you, but he's just going to do it in a nice way. But that's not, talking down to somebody is not positive. You're not meeting them 50-50 in the middle from where you are. And JD Vance sounds like a person that he feels like he's privileged, and you have to meet him. You have to do all the work to meet him, rather than him being willing to do the work to meet you. And I think a good politician, a good activist, a good anthropologist, a good sociologist is going to be willing to go to those people and meet them, and not go there one day and judge them. Just, really take your time and go meet people you never met before, never in your life spend any time with and had dinner. You see, that's kind of how I look at it. I don't see JD Vance as the type of guy that's going to go to a Chicago project, where maybe there's a family, a building where there's a lot of people on public assistance in Chicago. I don't think he's going to spend more than, if he ever did, more than an hour taking a look around and then leave. He doesn't seem like the type of person that really wants to get to know people. He seems like the type of person that's basically classist and wants to be a part of the upper class, and screams, you know, that I want to be part of the upper class. Like, he doesn't say it, but his energy is like, I'm willing to do anything, lie, cheat, anything to just fit into this club. I mean, to me, maybe that's a lot to take out of it, but to me, he comes off like that, and Tim Walsh doesn't. So let me play some of this and see what the fact checking is.
Manhattan, Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz just wrapped up their vice presidential debate, effectively getting the last word in this race for the White House before an audience this large. Unless, of course, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris agree to debate again before Election Day. Fingers crossed. We've made the invitation. Yeah. Harris has accepted. Tonight's debate was...
Harris has accepted. People are still waiting. You know, the tension is building. The excitement is building. We're still waiting to know, is Donald Trump going to accept? Because we're supposed to beg him to accept, right? Because he has that privilege. Yo, Donald Trump, you don't want to debate? Fuck you, son. They'd just be a loser. How about that? I think people got to start making Donald Trump do the work. You see what I mean? And if Donald Trump doesn't want to do the work, then you just don't want to do the work, son. You don't qualify. That's kind of how I look at it. That's how I've approached every job. Very straightforward. How you get this job is by showing you want the work, and you're willing to do the work, and you're willing to do it like it ain't nothing. You can handle it like that. Donald Trump, he sound like, hey, somebody gonna pay them bills for him. There's no urgency in his ass. No urgency to accept the debate by Donald Trump, because everything is fine. Everything's fine in his campaign. No need to have a debate. Debates don't really have places for him. He's allowed to circumvent the norms. Why should I have to prove? That's like me saying I want to go to college, but I don't need to take a test. You know what I'm saying? What the heck? No, you have to take the test, yo. You have to compete. You have to be willing to show people, where do you stand? Are you an A student, B student, C student, D student? You have to be willing to show it and prove it, and he just doesn't. He's not willing to show and prove a damn thing. He just wants you to expect that, hey, I have money and therefore I must be a genius. I must know what I'm doing, right? Even though I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth with a father who was a classist, who didn't give a damn. I mean, big money doesn't mean, growing up in a family with money doesn't mean your kids work hard or earned anything. It just means they grew up with a whole lot of money that somebody else didn't have the advantage to have in life, and maybe had to apply themselves and work hard. So, yeah. But in any case,
civil. The question of how factual it was. Tonight's election day, fingers crossed. We've made the invitation. Harris has accepted. Tonight's debate was civil. The question of how factual it was is another matter. Let's find out from our fact checker, Daniel Dale, what he thinks. Daniel?
Jake, it certainly wasn't a perfect debate from Governor Walz from a fact checker's perspective, but I think there was more inaccuracy from Senator Vance, and I think Vance had the two biggest whoppers of the night, both of them actually in what he left out rather than what he said. Listen to his claims about Trump's post-election behavior in 2020 and early 2021.
He said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. He peacefully gave over power on January the 20th.
This is a pretty wild rewriting of history. Trump peacefully gave over power on January the 20th. Sure, Trump did not.
That's trouble, because, again, a total double standard. If that's what peaceful is, whoa, the United States of America is in trouble, because that means we can all act like that, and that's considered peaceful. That's the new peaceful. Again, which one is it? And this flies in the face of the government. We're not talking about what, a senator can speak on their own, but if you can't pass shit, you're not speaking for the government. When senators come together, sign a bill, that bill goes to the Senate. When congressmen come together, write a bill, pass it to the Senate. Senate looks at it, they agree on it, sign it, pass it to the president, and he puts his signature on it. Then it becomes law if the courts do not intercede to fight over whatever the last bits of stuff there is to look at. That is what most of us think the law is once it's signed. It's not what a senator says. A senator can't make any law. They're not the government on their own. The entire process is the government. There's a process to it. And, it just seems like they have made up a whole nother universe to operate in, or a universe that didn't even work for them. They were penalized by the law. People have gone to jail. People have been investigated. And whatever criminal acts within that have been pursued by the federal government, the FBI. So there's been convictions, and that's because it wasn't peaceful. See, peaceful is when you come, you do not obstruct the law, you leave things as you found them, you follow the rules. That's peaceful. You see what I mean? They didn't follow no rules. When the police said, no, no, this is off limits, they said, "Ah!" and ran through. That's not peaceful. Um, when they were banging on those doors, breaking the glass, is that peaceful? If I come into your house and break your glass window and with a mob and run through it, is it peaceful? Yes or no? And the standard hey, break room, and the standard has to be the same. You know, they just he's lying. The dude is flat out lying, and you should reject a lie. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't treat people different. You know, um, if JD Vance comes to your home, looks you in the eye, tells you that, oh yeah, what we did last week, coming to your house, kicking down your door, breaking through your window, destroying all your property, and then going home was peaceful. You know what you're supposed to do?
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when.
And then you say, hey, yeah, well, that was my peaceful response. If anything, the police responded peacefully to the mob, which I won't, which I can tell you requires great restraint. I'm sure there's definitely reasons why they responded that way. That was a new moment. They definitely didn't realize what they were up against. Obviously, the system didn't work how it's intended to work. Help did not come fast enough. Things like this. And I think, to try to say that was peaceful, that was anything but peaceful. And that was violence. And JD Vance and Donald Trump have been following up with mental violence. It's just like a pimp beating up a woman, forcing her to do something, and then telling her, I only did it because I love you. That's mental violence. And I just hope people don't find that to be normal, So I won't be voting for JD Vance because that is one, at the very least, that's the most important thing. That you understand, even though your values might be different, even though you might want something different, when you come before me, you come with the same level of respect. Or we ain't having no conversation, period. You won't force me to have one. I think, this thing with privilege and how we're privileged enough to now have the rules applied differently than they would have applied to you. We all know that if that was a mob of African Americans with a couple of, 10%, 5%, other types of Americans, we know some bullets might have been flying. More people would have been shot by the police. That's what Black men feel about the police. That's what a lot of Black women feel about the police, because that is how we are often met. Not all the time, not in every state, but we're often met that way, with violence by the police. So why would we expect it any different? But here, and we get it when we also acting peacefully. We're not even being violent. We can just say, hey, officer, why'd you stop me? You don't have to ask me that. Get the hell out of the car. This kind of shit. These people obviously are not being treated that way by the police, and it has led them to think they can just walk up to the White House and be like, hey, F you. I'm coming in this house today. This is my house. Yeah. Whew. It's crazy, man.
Not like lock himself in the Oval Office, but he overpowered. This is a pretty wild rewriting of history. Trump peacefully gave over power on January the 20th. Sure, Trump did not lock himself in the Oval Office, but he left office after trying extremely hard to not give over power. We all know this. He tried to manipulate everyone from the American public to state elections officials, to state legislators, to the Justice Department, to his very own vice president. He helped trigger a deadly riot. And then Vance said Trump called for peaceful protest on January 6th. Yes, Trump did that once in that January 6th speech after calling supporters to Washington with a promise it would be wild, spending weeks whipping them into a frenzy with lies about the election, Vice President Pence's non-existent power to overturn the result. And then in that same January 6th speech, using combative language far more often than that calming language, saying things like, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. You'll never take back our country with weakness, on and on. Now, let's turn to another egregious distortion of history from...
Now, is this what people are going to respect from African Americans if we approach things that way? If we don't meet this with this same level of, we're not going to have a country if we don't walk up to the Capitol, kick in the door, break glass, shit on the floor, and say, give me my reparations because the United Nations said you owe it to us, right? Is that what we're supposed to do? I mean, it cannot be both ways. Inquiring minds want to know, what does Donald Trump, what does J.D. Vance, what does the Republican Party think of African Americans organizing in Washington, D.C. to raid the Capitol building and demand reparations, shit on the floor, kill an officer or whoever gets in the damn way, stomp their head in, bash their head in? Is this what African Americans that are seeking reparations, according to the United Nations, is this what we're supposed to do? Is this the right thing to do? J.D. Vance? Donald Trump? Because, hey, if that's all you have to do to get that kind of stuff, why not? Why not do it? How would I not know? How would I know? You're supposed to tell me what's acceptable. You're supposed to show me what's acceptable. You're supposed to practice the law, right? On January 6th, J.D. Vance said, hey, those people were peaceful. Well, all you got to do is put blackface on them and say their demands was reparations, and then pull out the paper that says the UN said you must. And then we go kick in the door, burn down some stuff, go shit in the floor, say we're going to hang the whoever else if you don't give us our reparations, right? Is that what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to do that at the Senate building? We're supposed to do that at the White House? Because J.D. Vance calls it peaceful? Because J.D. Vance calls it, a just cause? If Donald Trump calls it a just cause, if you don't do this, you're not going to have anything. African Americans, maybe that's true. Maybe if we don't do that, we're not going to get reparations. Is that the missing component? But to J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, those people that support them, they believe it's okay to do things that way. Is that a double standard? Should they get away with it or should they not? If they get away with it and people back it up and make arguments and the law backs it up and says it's okay, then we should do it too. Everybody should. Or if everybody shouldn't, then you need to shoot that shit down when it happens the first time and not make excuses about it. So it's a moment for the United States, and J.D. Vance is helping us figure out that moment. MAGA, they're helping us figure out that moment. Thank you, MAGA. Thank you for storming the Capitol and showing us that this is lawful and peaceful, because we need examples about what peaceful were, because we thought lynching people was violent. Maybe it's not. We don't know. Show us. But there can be no double standard. With no doubles, if there's a double standard, there's classism, there's discrimination, there's all those things. You see what I'm saying? So, let's go on. But this is J.D. Vance saying African Americans, if you want things done, this is Donald Trump saying, this kind of action is peaceful, it's lawful. He's the one saying it. But J.D. Vance won't support you. J.D. Vance is going to flip that shit around. If you're black and you do it, then all of a sudden these same people are going to be calling you animals. These same people are going to be saying it's you that should be paying reparations. These same people are going to be saying, what else did this fool say? Talking about what all these kind of crazy things. It's all going to flip around because it's a double standard. So if you want double standards, vote for Trump. If you want double standards, vote for JD Vance. If you want double standards, support politicians that select Supreme Court justices that want double standards, like the one that they gave the president. You know, vote for those if you want double standards. But if you don't want double standards, my advice is don't support people that, you know, practice double standards. Don't do it. But you can't have it both ways. You see, you got to be man and woman enough to pick your fate, the one you're going down, you know, the one you're actually going to do. You see what I mean? Otherwise, it's not real. So,
Senator Vance, this one on Obamacare.
When Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
what's up, bro?
Casting Donald Trump as the savior of Obamacare, I think, is bananas. Donald Trump tried very hard to repeal Obamacare.
Yeah, things worth knowing. And Ralph and Andrea. Yeah. What's up, y'all? I hope y'all saw the debate.
The only reason it was not
Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
Hold on. Did this fool say work in a bipartisan way?
When Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure.
Look, y'all, if you like people screwing with your brain, then listen to JD Vance. Obamacare wasn't crumbling. What did he say? It was crumbling. Listen to this.
Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and
healthcare
costs.
Healthcare costs.
Donald Trump could have destroyed the program.
Now look, how's that possible? Because Donald Trump got a better economy passed to him from Obama than he passed to Biden. You see what I'm saying? Donald Trump passed Biden and Harris a catastrophe. Obama didn't. Obama actually worked for the country despite anybody's race and said that he would. And actually, so if it's crushing under something, if it's faltering, if it's draining the economy, if there's with no money, then how do you pass that economy on to Trump? How did the GDP go up? How's that possible? You see, again, this is more, what I have to interpret this talk to is racist talk. This is, and I hate to talk this way, but racism is real. And a lot of people have internalized racism. They may not even think that they're being racist because they're just used to it. But this man is used to describing things this way. He, in my view, is just very simple. What's good for the goose is not good for the gander. He and many Republicans, first of all, they told you what they thought when Obama came into office. They said the first thing, N-word. They told you. Most people just had a problem with Obama doing a good job because he's a black guy. And there in America, there's always been privilege, pretty much a little bit of privilege in being white and not being something else. So this is kind of like, trying to keep a standard that needs to be destroyed for things to be better. He's trying to imagine things, reinvent things that never really happened. No healthcare system is perfect. Zero healthcare system is perfect. At all times, you're supposed to be engaging, striving to find little ways to make the system you have better. You don't just stand still on it. You improve it constantly, just like you would do your house, just like you make improvements on your home, just like you make improvements to your computer system, your data systems, just like you make improvements to your laboratory. You don't just sit in the past and say, this is perfect. That's all it's going to do. No, it has to always be updated and adjusted, always monitored, always looked at to find out, are there holes? Is it fair? Is it doing its job correctly? Can it be done better? And how you do that is through collecting analysis from the ground, collecting data, sharing the data, being real about the data, going out to the places where people are paying taxes, where people are saying they're in need, and actually going out and doing the research, collecting it and bringing it back, analyzing it through several different sources to make sure that you're seeing the core truths of it, that the core things are rising up to the top of the data. Then you bring it and present it to the public and say, this is what I found. And this is what other experts have found. It's a process. This guy came out of it talking, he's following, where is he getting his data from? Even with September 6th, where'd you get your data from? That was peaceful. Where's the data on the piece? Where's the data on the piece? Where's the data on the failed Obamacare? You can't just snap your fingers, think because you had a failing health system before that when you improve it, perfection. No. If you want healthcare to work, you're going to have to make a constant and persistent look at it by the experts and really deliver the data and, and hope that your fellow politicians back you up on it, vote on the improvements and things like this. But let's go on.
And instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to
Look, the bipartisan way, by calling it Obamacare, it was the American Health Care Act. Bipartisan isn't giving it a trope name, giving it the last name of the person, to try to, make fun of it. Where is the Trump care bill at? I mean, where are these other people getting these names? Where's the, George Bush healthcare plan? You see what I mean? Like, where are these things at? No, but for Obama, that was good. That's called talking down. That's called being condescending, and people went right along with it,
affordable care.
Casting Donald Trump as the savior of Obamacare, I think, is bananas. Donald Trump tried very hard to repeal Obamacare. The only reason it was not repealed in 2017 was because he barely couldn't find enough Republican votes in Congress. And then he tried to undermine Obamacare in various ways. He cut the open enrollment period in half. He slashed funding for advertising and for people who help other Americans sign up. He ended a key set of subsidies for insurers. His administration refused to defend some critical provisions of the law in court, instead arguing that they should indeed be invalidated. I could go on. So yes, Trump did keep operating the Obama exchanges. He didn't completely give up on it, but casting him as the savior of Obamacare, I think, Jake, is pretty dishonest.
Daniel, what stood out to you?
I think what most struck me, Anderson, was significant revisionist history from Senator Vance on the subject of Obamacare on January 6th. But I was also struck by the fact that we had a false claim from each candidate on the subject of reproductive rights. So first, let's listen to something that Governor Walz said about the Conservative Heritage Foundation think tank's initiative known as Project 2025.
Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments.
This claim, which Governor Walz has made before, is false. Project 2025's 900-page policy document is online. You can read it. I've read it. Nothing in it proposes to make anyone register their pregnancy with the government. What Project 2025 does propose is that the federal government takes steps to make sure it is getting from every state detailed after the fact anonymous data on abortion and miscarriage. The federal government already gets this data from almost every state on a voluntary basis. Project 2025 wants to make it mandatory for all states, but there's no pregnancy registration involved in this data collection today. Project 2025 doesn't propose to change that. And in fact, Tim Walz's own state of Minnesota already posts details after the fact anonymous abortion and miscarriage data online on the state health department website. There is no pregnancy registration in Minnesota, of course. And I should also note that while the governor referred to their Project 2025, it is not an initiative of the Trump-Vance campaign itself, though it is, of course, also true that Trump and Vance have extensive and close ties to it. Now I want to look at a claim that Senator Vance made on his past position.
Well, and I think the other thing is they want to. I think, of course, that's not true. If it's not there, it's not there. I never read that what Tim Walz said. I never saw that in Project 2025. Although we sat here and read through some of it, even just what we read is I thought was disturbing. Doesn't make any sense, and I was able to find that out and research it live with you guys. You know, there's some strange, really strange, not just strange, but far overreaching things. Just the main fact that they want to reduce the FEMA response. It says that. That's what it says. It to privatize the FEMA aid response, you know, food, things like that. I mean, hey, look into it. But I think what's disturbing to me is that they want to prosecute. So that same information can be used to prosecute women that are having abortions. And I think that's what's coupled it up, you know. So maybe he put in the intent, you know, but his answer was incorrect and he needs to work on that. But look at who we talking to. We talking about Walz versus JD Vance. You see what I mean? So are you going to have a double standard? Is it okay for JD Vance to be wrong? Should you hold him accountable for being wrong? Should you check fact JD Vance, or should you just fact check? I'm sorry, check back. Fact check. Should it only be Walz? You see what I mean? Should it only be Harris that we fact check, or should we just fact check everything for everybody that says they want to run for office? How about that? How about we do that?
Position on abortion.
Why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard.
This is false. Before Senator Vance joined the Trump campaign and fell behind Trump's professed desire for a state-by-state approach to abortion, Vance did support a national abortion ban. In 2022, when he ran for the U.S. Senate, he said it in an interview, and this is a direct quote, "I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally." No caveats there. He added that he was, quote, sympathetic to the view that a national ban was necessary to stop women from traveling across state lines to obtain abortions. And he also said in his website during that Senate campaign that he was, quote, 100% pro-life, end quote, and that he favored eliminating abortion. These categorical words were on his website until Trump chose him as his running mate. They certainly included no caveats about opposing a federal legislation. And then in the Senate, as recently as late last year, he explicitly pushed a national ban as early as 15 weeks gestation. As a debate moderator said to him, he can try to spin that as just a standard, but it's not like a goal or a target. That was federal legislation, or the idea of it at least, that would have banned abortion at 15 weeks. And again, he was even more categorical, Anderson, before he was elected.
He was more categorical before he was elected. So he was doubling down. Okay, so yeah, so that's one fact checking. Now let's get out of here. Let me see something here. Go back. Now let's go over and see. Right, here we go.
Civil debate, despite months of rather vicious and nasty attacks between senators.
Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel.
Yeah, that actually went on. Iran launched an attack, you know. I haven't had time to cover that or to look into it, but yeah. There's a lot going on in one moment.
Considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced 1 or 2 weeks' time. Would you, Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together, understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit, because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did.
Listen, what people need to understand right now is that this dude is out of his damn mind. The reason why Israel is having these new rounds of attacks, there's a reason for it. And the reason is that there's something called occupied territory. In the occupied territory that Israel possesses, it by law belongs to the Palestinian people. That's where they're supposed to build the state that everyone supported. Now, the international community, even the United States, that's what brought the peace. That's what people were waiting for. When is the state going to be built? And when is the occupation going to come to an end? So things had been, tense, but folks were waiting for action. What Donald Trump did, and if you don't want to Google it and you don't want to look it up, that's on you. But the facts are Donald Trump gave the okay. He's the one who actually moved the. Let's look this up, man. Let's just look it up right in your face. They moved the U.S. embassy into occupied territory, into territory it's not supposed to be here. Hold on, let me look this up. Let me make sure, because I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. But I tell you one thing for sure. I'm calling out people on a whole lot of facts. all the time, proving it, not just saying it. So let me look this fact up. It's a lot of these facts here. Let's just move on to this. Let me see. Where is the okay? Chat GDP. Let's see here. How was moving the USA embassy in Israel perceived politically by persons who support the non-occupation of Palestine and the two-state solution? See, yeah, a question mark. I mean, these are the facts, y'all. And look, if you want to make things better, you can start off by making things better by being correct about the shit you're saying, doing what you say you're going to do, and being fair in that. Now, this is what it says, and you're not going to find. Oh, what the hell happened? You're not going to find anything else, because I was following the news when it happened. It's international news. People were outraged by this. Politicians were like, anybody that was talking about there's supposed to be a two-state solution was like, what the fuck did Donald Trump just do? He unleashed Armageddon because they don't want it. The Iranians don't want it. You see, he screwed up all the negotiations for peace. Donald Trump did that. You can't have peace if you can't stick to your deals. That's the problem. Now listen to this. I didn't make this up. I'm speaking facts about it. And you need to know the facts. Everyone needs to know the facts. Don't let JD Vance insult your intelligence. Do your homework. If you just do a tiny bit of work, you will be doing more work than JD Vance did. You see how easy that was? Look at this.
The decision to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in 2018 was highly controversial and politically divisive, particularly for those who support the non-occupation of Palestine and the two-state solution. Perceptions of the move. 1. Supporters of the two-state solution. Many supporters of a two-state solution viewed the move as a significant blow to peace efforts. Jerusalem is a city with deep significance to both Israelis and Palestinians, and its final status is one of the most sensitive issues in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Critics argued that the U.S. decision undermined its traditional role as a neutral mediator in peace negotiations. They believed that recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital without addressing Palestinian claims to East Jerusalem, which they hoped to make the capital of a future Palestinian state, effectively dismissed Palestinian aspirations and weakened the possibility of future negotiations.
Bingo.
Number 2.
Now look, I'm not going to use all the time. Anybody can do this that wants to know what happened. But here's the thing. If you don't call JD Vance a lion snake, a devil, you're the fool, because he just lied on national TV to everyone. And if you think that you're going to get any respect from anybody that you allow to simply walk up in your face and lie to you like that,
that's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when
it ain't never going to happen. You're a damn fool if you let somebody do that. That is how Hamas, and I'm not legitimizing them. That's how Iran, and I'm not legitimizing them, but that's how half of the damn world felt. That's what the legal world felt. That's what the UN felt, that was a betrayal to peace negotiations. That's what they felt. That was a betrayal of the Palestinian people. It was. It was a betrayal. You went against your word. You see? So Biden, I don't know exactly what Biden did to follow up on that, like remove the embassy, you know. Um, I don't know if that happened, but the bottom line is listen to what JD Vance just told you the issue was.
White House. If we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in.
Listen, people are not afraid of stepping out of line. You have to interpret this language. They're not afraid of stepping out of line for Donald Trump. That's not what's going on here. You shouldn't be out to make people afraid. That's not what's going on. What the United States it should be out to do is to gain the confidence of people as a negotiator through holding your promises. It has nothing to do with fear. Everybody knows the United States can blow Iran out of the sky. Everybody knows that. Why would a superpower, can China blow Iran out of the sky? Can China decimate Iran? Yes. Can Russia do it? They're very weak, but yeah, they could probably do it too. Definitely. And yes, the United States can blow a whole lot of people out of the water any day of the week. But is that how you want to lead? Is that really how you're going to lead? How far is that going to go? What's that going to get you? Is that the intelligent leadership? Is that the intelligent way to lead? When you can simply work with people that are happy to work with you. How about that? How about that? You see, so JD Vance, he lied. He's lying, totally lying about it. These tensions, they're left over from nobody doing anything about the embassy. The embassy was like a slap in the face to them because that came from the leader, from the leader of the country that is handling the negotiations. The leader of the country that's handling the negotiations, Trump, went back on the negotiation terms. That makes no sense. You can't do that. And listen, right now, it is really sad to say, although it's not going to change, it's not going to hurt the pockets of the United States, but a lot of people are ended up dead because of these tensions. And this could end up into more war where a lot more people get dead, hundreds of thousands to millions more people. Yes, it easily can. It might go there. So for a group of people that say, you want peace, you don't want more violence, the world is in chaos because of Biden. Yo, the world is in chaos. The world's not in chaos because of any one person, but damn, what's going on with Israel and Palestine, that's in chaos right now, and something ignited it. If you're not willing to hear the world's words on it, you're the one who's wrong. I mean, we help pay, not establish, but we pay into the UN. We're a member state of the UN. Why are we not listening to what the fellow nations say in the UN? They already talked about it. What are we going to do? So we're in a situation, the United States, that if we remove our presence, Israel will be slaughtered, or they will be forced to slaughter other people in their defense. If we remove ourselves, and if we support them, so what's the solution? If we support their defense, what's going to happen? People are also going to get slaughtered. You see, so a real leader doesn't go out there, even if you got the guns, you got the muscles, you need to have the brains too. Guns and muscle ain't going to get the job done as sweet as honey. You see what I'm saying? You know, if you're intelligent, you would tell yourself, why do I have to spend all these guns and weapons when I can just give them some honey and get what I want? Duh. Isn't that the easiest thing to do to get the advantage? If honey gets you the advantage in the situation, you give honey. It's not always the bombs. The United States goal is to trade with these people, to work with these people. That is the goal. The goal is not to cut them off, build the wall, and wait till they build up their forces, you know, with China and Russia, and then start attacking American assets. No, it's called let's work with the people that want to work with us in a decent way so we can continue this prosperous nation that doesn't share with its own people the prosperity. People like JD Vance don't want to do it. You know, it's sad, but let me read some of the comments. I'm sorry. I'm not always so good at it. Let me see here. Things worth knowing. This is Bev. I'm like sugar in a cup of hot coffee. Funny. That debate last night was what I accepted, nothing but lies. I mean, JD Vance is, well, that's the standard. It's a double standard. One type is allowed to just lie, and the other type has to do everything better, you know, tell the truth, be accurate all the time. I mean, and you can see JD Vance, he ain't even accurate about his foreign policy, you know. Why is he ignoring what the UN says? Why is he ignoring what our allies say? Our allies even say moving that embassy was dumb, went against the treaty, went against the agreement that you made. Our own allies told us that outside of the UN. It's not just the globe telling us that. Our own closest allies told Donald Trump that. What did Donald Trump do? Say, hey, F you, man. I'm going to dismantle NATO anyway. Donald Trump is what's creating the war, because if you make the U.S. weak, the U.S. will then have to show strength and power again, because people are looking at it like it's weak. Why even look weak in the beginning? Why even, undermine your own agreements? That's weakening you. Why do that? If there's war in these areas, how do you think the trade is going to, do you think that's going to increase the price of trade? Do you think that's going to result in the cost of your goods going up? Do you want to replace those goods by making everything yourself? Because you can't. It just doesn't work that easy in the world. You need logistics, you need cooperation, you need to exercise options. You need to be intelligent about the choices you make. Yes, we have loads of oil. We can pump loads of oil to add to set off some of the costs, but we don't need to pump all our oil out of the ground, because once it's all pumped out of the ground, you had no reserves when you need them to offset the other direction. You see the other chain of events. They're not talking like this. JD Vance and Donald Trump, they're talking to Americans like we're dumb. That's what they do. And if you accept it, you're dumb. That's just what it is. But at least I'm telling you, like, I care about you. At least I'm telling you, like, I respect you. JD Vance is talking straight up down to you in your face. Straight up lies.
Unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and people were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use?
Listen, if you bomb, regardless of what you think, what situation are you in right now as the United States of America? And what situation will you be in after you bomb the hell out of Iran? You just have to ask yourself that honest question. Can you defend yourself after you bomb the hell out of Iran? Yeah, you can. What will the rest of the world do? The rest of the world won't attack us, but they will begin to turn their backs on us too. They will. American corporations will begin to be kicked out. Somebody else will get those resources and trade from those nations. Even Iran is not going to, cooperate. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, they will be under pressure to say, damn, as much as we don't like Iran, we have to live next to these people. And what just happened didn't help. That's what's going to go on. It's going to give Russia and China more leverage in those areas. And that is going to have serious consequences on the United States economy and security. It will. And that's why you don't want to treat people that way. Yeah, that's not a wise move. So Donald Trump, he ignited a lot of this that we're seeing right now. It's not Biden that went back on the agreement. He's trying to get people back on track on the agreement. And you see how hard it is to get Israel and Palestine back on the agreement. You see how hard that is. So yeah, if you think a war in that area is going to help the United States, hey, be the first to go out there to go to war. If you think retracting all the military, removing all your assets, all the business you're doing, if you think that's going to help the United States prosper and be more secure, hey, go ahead and do it. But that's not what's happening. Right now, Biden is trying to negotiate. I don't know. Do you think he should be trying to negotiate? Or do you think he should be trying to threaten people? You be the judge. You make your vote. You keep your vote.
That money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world.
Look, nobody wants to be kicked like a damn dog. Donald Trump moved the U.S. Embassy into occupied Palestinian territory. That is the one non-negotiable thing. That's a what do they call that? A non-starter. If you possess and continue to occupy and support, if you support occupied territory, if you support it, it's a non-starter. Now, no people that have any kind of dignity are just going to accept it. And their neighbors, if they have any kind of dignity, are not just going to accept it. And guess what? They're not just accepting it. They're not just accepting it. You see, if we wanted to blow them off the earth, yeah, we could commit a lot of genocides if we want to. We can. Is that what you want, voters? Do you want the United States to commit genocide against a whole lot more people? I'm not even talking about just the Palestinians. I'm talking about the whole region. Is that what you want? Because that's what you might have to do if you want to have anything at all ever with that region. You see, if you don't know how to negotiate, that might be the only other option. What's up with that? You see, so I don't know. JD Vance just passing the buck.
The world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Senator Vance, your campaign.
Oh, so he agrees with Biden. That's what Biden is doing. Trying to support, but also get everybody back on the table with the two-state solution. And I'm going to tell you something. Sadly enough, that can work because that's an option if people really want to make it work. All parties, the backing parties, but You know, if folks don't want it, it also cannot happen. You see, it's not happening right now, right? It was happening a little bit, on its way a little bit. Things were getting stable. You see what I mean? Business was going on as usual, and now people are talking about going to war. I mean, going to war with Iran. Does Israel have the right to do that? That he passed the buck. Israel has the right, but Israel can't defend itself alone. So him just saying, "Yeah, if you want to do a defensive strike against Iran, that's okay." No, it's not okay. Last option, yeah, maybe, but it's not just simply okay, because guess who that draws into the conflict? The United States, unless you want them to be slaughtered. So don't say you're Israelis' friends if you're okay with them being totally slaughtered. You can't have it both ways. You see, and that's what's going to happen. And I'm telling you, I don't want either one of them to be slaughtered. I think it's sad. I think it's very, very sad to see this kind of barbarism on both sides. That's my opinion. Um, but you know, there's not an easy answer out of it. We're not going to just walk out of it. Um, Israel cannot defend itself. It cannot. So just get that out of your head. Just like Palestine cannot defend itself, even less. But Israel can defend itself from Palestine, but it can't defend itself from the entire region. You see what I mean? It can't do it on its own. Not that the entire region is out to get Israel, but it can't do it alone. You know, it just simply can't do it. You saw that what happens. I mean, where is Israel getting its defense from? Where is it getting these defense weapons from? Who do you think they get them from? They don't make them. Who do they get them from? Us. So they're not doing it by themselves. You see? So we gotta like look at the situations in depth, and not just act like it's just an easy choice to make. No problem. If I just do this day, the problem will be solved. If I just show some strength, problems are going to be solved. No, that's not how people function. People don't function that way. People remember things. People remember injustices. People's children remember injustices. You know, often what's happening is that both sides don't want to admit to what they're doing, or neither side is willing to communicate to create some sort of peace. You know? So
Hain is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That is opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl.
Listen, y'all. Again. I don't know where JD Vance is getting his facts from, but building a wall on the southern border ain't going to do shit to stop fentanyl. Are you out of your mind? Where's this guy getting this from? You think the wall is going to stop cocaine and fentanyl? Where have you been in the 80s and in the 90s? Don't you know the cocaine was flown in? What is this? Coming in on boats? This dude he's lying to you. Stopping fentanyl, stopping narcotics from entering the country is not a one or two pronged approach. Stopping immigration is not a one or two prong approach. Illegal immigration, it's not one or two things. It's a mass amount of things that you have to work on comprehensively to get a positive effect. You know, and this is, again, you have to understand this. JD Vance does not even believe the shit he's saying himself. He's saying it because he thinks you're dumb enough to think it's that simple. And you would be. Facts. You didn't know cocaine came in on airplanes? You didn't know pounds and tons of cocaine comes in on boats? You didn't know that? How did you not know that? How did you not know that? They use any goddamn route available. It's not like they're saying, yeah. You didn't know that? This is crazy. United States of America, politicians, drug addicts, and non-drug addicts. Let me inform you. Fentanyl, cocaine, heroin does not simply just come through the border, the southern border. It flies over that border. It goes under that border. It goes through the sea with that border. It does all kinds of things. It can even go to Canada and come in through the northern border. It can go to Africa and come in on a boat. It can go to Europe and come in on a boat. It's like, what is this guy talking about? He's fixated with just what's right in front of his face, right here. He can't see the forest from the trees. That's what that's called. The man can't see the forest and the trees. If it was that simple, don't you think it would have been done a long time ago? By the way, if you want to look at immigration, why don't you look at what some of your allies are doing on immigration across the world? You think the United States is the only goddamn country that's dealing with immigration issues, legal or illegal? You think there's the only ones governing over these things? You can learn from your allies. Why doesn't he ever talk about that? Why doesn't he ever talk about it if he wants solutions? Are they that myopic? 2024, are these guys that myopic? He's being this way because you're letting him be this way. There's a good amount of people that are just going, duh, okay, JD Vance, if you say so.
Into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to...
Notice he's saying, I think. Notice he's not quoting any data. He's not saying, according to blah, 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 la, 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 this many illegal aliens live in the country. According to da, la, 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 this many are involved in organized crime or crime. According to da, 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 da. He's not using any data. He's just saying, I think. Yeah, okay, motherfucker. Anybody can say, I think. Do you just let somebody sell you a home because they say, yeah, well, I think. Is that what you spend your money on? People that just tell you, I think. No, they need to know and tell you why they know. JD Vance is not doing it. He's not doing it. And he's on the international debate stage, not doing it.
Undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for
a lot of people. What did he just say? Hold on.
Make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers.
Okay, make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. Okay.
A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own.
A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage. Okay, I think I understand what he's saying. He's saying if these now you have to listen to how slick he is. Can you survive off of less than minimum wage? So he's admitting something right there. He's saying that these people are coming in, taking jobs that pay less than minimum wage, and that's a threat to your job. That's what he's saying, essentially. That's what he's saying. You know, I mean, but let me tell you, $27 trillion a year GDP. The wealthy are not complaining about the United States. They don't have a problem. They seem to be doing very fine. The wealthy are doing very fine with the illegal immigrants right now. They're not affected at all. Could it be that they're using this as a political ploy? Could it be that they're saying, aha, to avoid us paying our fair share, what we can do is tell them the reason why we can't pay them a good wage, why we don't want the tax system to change so that they can get a fair situation out of their hard work every day. What we do is we'll blame it on the illegal immigrants. We'll tell them they're the ones stopping them from doing all of that. No. And again, if you believe it, you're just not doing the math. Are illegal immigrants annoying? Yeah, they could be annoying. Or can anybody be annoying? Can Donald Trump be annoying? Yeah. Can Melania, his wife, be annoying? Oh, she annoying as hell. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't see nothing American about her ass. Period. What can I do about it? No, it's just the law. The law works that way. But Donald Trump's not trying to change that law. You know, he's not trying to make rich people, wait for theirs. He's not saying, hey, first we get the illegal immigrants out, then we do that billionaire tax cut. No, he's saying we got the money to do the billionaire tax cut first before we get the illegals out. That's what he did. But he's telling you they don't have the money for the health care, affordable housing, education, childcare until they go get the illegal immigrants out of the country. I mean, it is facts. Tell me that I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. I would like to know, but you're not, because I'm just stating the facts of it. That's the argument that they're making, literally to your face.
Country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation.
A fair wage, who just want to earn a fair wage for good work. He's telling you, you're not going to be, these folks are not obligated to pay you a good wage for good work, a decent wage for good work, until you deal with the immigrants. That's what he's saying. At the same time, he's telling the rich and the wealthy, hey, although we have these immigrants and these problems, we have the money to give you the tax break. Can you get the tax break for the child care? No. How much does that cost? What's the tax break going to be for the billionaires that they got? How much was that? Compare the two. And remember to understand that when you're comparing those numbers, there's a wealthy group you're comparing to a group that is not wealthy. So the group that is not wealthy depends more on these fairnesses. The billionaires, they don't depend on it. They're getting all the fairness. They're not getting fairness. They're getting the best deal ever for anyone. Damn near on earth,
Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask.
All right. So let me ask you a question. Back to the Americans. What makes an American citizen sell drugs? Why do American citizens want to sell cocaine? Why do American citizens want to sell fentanyl? Why do American citizens want to sell heroin? Why? Why do you think that is? If they weren't down with it, it wouldn't be happening. So why do they want to do it? Anybody got an answer for that? I got the answer because I listen to the people that are doing it and ask them, why are you doing it? And most of them tell you, couldn't get a job, have this criminal record. So the only job I can get that allows me in reality to really pay the bills is boom, boom, boom. I got these amount of kids. The judge is sanctioning my check. There are all kinds of things. All you got to do is listen to them. So if you want to fight heroin, you want to fight the opioid epidemic, regardless, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine epidemic. You want to fight these things, pills. You want to fight these things? Start with the Americans and ask, why are Americans doing it? And why are Americans selling it? Why are Americans working with the cartels? Why are they doing it? If you can figure out why they're doing it, listen to what they're saying when they tell you why they're doing it, and meet them where their reasonable needs are, you can effectively reduce it because they won't be cooperating with it anymore. They'll be cooperating with you. You see, people don't sell drugs for no reason. American citizens that are in gangs or not that traffic drugs, they're doing it for a reason. You have to ask them what the reason is. And if you ask them and you listen to them, you will be closer to solving the epidemic because the cartels cannot move the shit inside of the United States on the ground without American citizens doing it for them, assisting it for them, covering up for them, but really doing most of the work for them. So why doesn't JD Vance approach that? I mean, he says he cares about American citizens. Do you care about American citizens that are drug dealers? I don't think JD Vance care about American citizens at all, drug dealers or drug addicts, or not, or people that don't use drugs. Where's the solutions coming from? When you say I can't afford health care, he's not saying, guess what? That shouldn't even be a problem. Everybody should have health care. You're an American citizen. But JD Vance is not saying that. When an American citizen says, I'm selling drugs because I can't afford to put a roof over my shoulders any other way because of this, this, and this, JD Vance isn't saying, I hear you. You know what? Guess what? You deserve more of a better chance at life. I'm going to help you resolve that problem so you don't have to sell drugs. JD Vance is not saying that. He's saying, let me punish your black ass and let me punish you twice as hard, blackie. That's what JD Vance and Donald Trump are saying. If you drug dealers that are American citizens, if you don't like immigrants so much, why the fuck are you working with them to sell the drugs in your own country? Because you don't have a choice? Maybe is it that? Is it that? You think it's that? It must be because you don't have a choice, because you can't sell drugs working with them and then talk shit about them being illegals at the same time. God damn, what a hypocrisy that would be. But you don't see me demeaning them. You don't see me talking about them that way.
Ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what? I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Screwed up moving the embassy into Tel Aviv? Did he say that? Is he taking responsibility for that? I haven't heard him take responsibility for that. He seems to be saying it's somebody else's fault. that all this is going on.
The president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children.
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the attorney general of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan,
why didn't Mexico pay for the border? What did Donald Trump do when Mexico didn't pay for the border? Did Mexico respond and say, fuck you, we ain't paying for no border, Donald Trump? Yes, they did. What did Donald Trump do? Nothing. He said, oh, you all going to have to pay for it. And he also said, not only are you going to have to pay for it, but if you don't pay for it, we ain't going to have money for nothing else, y'all. Not your health care, not your child care, none of that. Nada.
One point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was, I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
During the summer and misspoke on this. So
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was, I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. It was being a good soldier, Xi Jinping about COVID, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to
Oh, sorry about that. I'm on mute. I just looked up the date of the Tiananmen Square protest. It says here that it is April to June 4th. So April 15th to June 4th. That's how April to May, hold on. April to May, May to June. Right. So that's 3 months. Hold on. That's 2 months, essentially, right? He said he was there that summer and he mixed up the dates. Okay. So I guess he was saying that he was there around the time of the Tiananmen Square. And so he got a sense of the tensions of the people and this environment at that time. Let's say that's like, were you in the United States, a month or two around the time that the January 6th invasion of the Capitol building took place? Were you around? Did you get a sense of the people? How was the tensions of the people? How was the society feeling at that time? And so he's saying that he misspoke. Whether you want to believe him or not, that's up to you. For me, I think the overall point is, do you have a sense of what was going on in the country around that time? Do you have a sense of what it felt like on the ground in that country at that time? Were you in the United States January 6th, or were you in the United States February 6th? Is there a difference in the tensions, political tensions on the ground in the United States? Was it January, February, March? Were you there in March? Is there a difference in the tension before, 5 years before, or 5 years after? Is there a difference in the political environment? So I think I get his point, but hey, that's up to you to understand. But here's another factor. Did the man admit that he made a mistake? Did he admit it? Is that a quality that you admire in men, or is it a quality that you don't? And keep it consistent across the board with everybody. Don't just flip flop on it. Do you respect it or not? Me, myself, I respect it. And I don't see why that's a big thing for him to admit. I think the person who couldn't admit that they made a mistake would be a very small person, you know.
To follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
Just all I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in government.
Yeah, actually, I don't even know what they're talking. Why are they making a big issue out of this? He was actually there around the time that was going on. He got a sense of the protest. It's not. In case you don't know, it didn't just stay in Tiananmen Square. You know, it was tensions all over. You know, because of that, in the same town as Tiananmen Square. Tiananmen Square is just the Capitol building. You see what I'm saying? You know, did it spread over outside the Capitol building? Yeah, it did. It actually did. It wasn't just, you know, in front of the Capitol building. You know, people walked around parts of DC with their guns wanting to challenge folks. And, you know, yeah, there had to be police walking around there with them, all of that stuff, you know, and it wasn't all just at the Capitol building, the tensions of the group, because the group wasn't even just only at the Capitol building. They went from the White House. Is the White House the same place as the Capitol building? How many blocks? How long does it take you to walk from the White House area to the Capitol? Have you done it before? Do you know it? It's going to take you about 20 minutes to walk there, right? Not that that's a lot of time. On a bicycle, you might be able to get there in 3 minutes, no problem. 3-4 minutes, you could do that. The lights might stop you. You might have to stop at some lights, but it's going to take you about 20 minutes to walk from the White House to the Capitol on a regular average day at an average pace. Maybe for some people a half an hour. That's also a good time. You know, might have to go uphill once you get to the Capitol area. That might slow you down a little bit, but that's what they had to do. You have to think these things through, look at the details, and ask yourself, what the hell are they talking about? You know, give the man a break. He wasn't lying, and he didn't intentionally misspeak. There's a difference. Did he admit that he misspoke? Absolutely he did. Did you see him admit it? Yes, you did. He did it on national TV. Do you admire people that can admit when they make a mistake? What do you do when you meet a person that can admit they made a mistake? Do you pat them on the back and say, man, I like that about you, man. You're not always right. Nobody's ever right all the time. But when you find out that you're not correct, you can admit it like a man. I mean, that's what I would do. I would want to work with a person like that, but maybe everybody doesn't.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate, Donald Trump, unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained.
Did J.D. Vance misspeak when he called Donald Trump Hitler? Is there something close to it? Was he kind of like not Hitler, but Stalin? You know, is there some kind of middle ground there? Let's find out.
You then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's.
Maybe he didn't mean Hitler. Maybe he meant King Leopold. Did he misspeak?
Economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with.
J.D. Vance was absolutely right. Donald Trump failed to do that, you know. He was right there.
If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it.
If he delivered on the border, then why the hell is he still talking about he wants a border? See, that's the thing. You know, it's like saying, I delivered on providing fresh water to Flint, Michigan. But if they're still talking about they have fresh water problems in Flint, Michigan, did you deliver? You know, it's like he's again, double standard. Nobody else delivered anything, but Donald Trump did. It's half done, but Donald Trump did that, so that's a success. But nobody else that goes through the same process that Donald Trump does gets any validation from JD Vance for getting something half done, 60% done, 75% done. None of that counts when you're talking about other people. It's just Donald Trump. You know?
One of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done
Ask Donald Trump why he didn't deliver a good economy to Biden. There's excuses. If Biden talks about that, uses those same excuses, it doesn't count.
so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of
Dude, 2020, this ain't ancient history. 2020 was just around the corner, yo. That's called a flip-flop. When he talks about Kamala Harris's record, change in position from 2020, what does he call it? What does he call that? Is he being fair? Or is he being a hypocrite? Does he practice what he preach? Or does he do something else when it's him? It's just questions.
things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where
a high-class debating society. A high-class Congress is not just a high-class debating society. So who are the high-class people in Congress? Is it Republicans? Is it Democrats? Is Donald Trump high-class president? Can you use the same terms towards him? What makes Donald Trump understand the everyday person? What is it about his life that makes him understand the American people? Is he more distant, more rich? Can you get to Donald Trump and shake his hand, or can you get to a congressperson's place of business and shake their hand? I mean, what he's saying, again, you have to just have flip-flopping standards to go for this. You know, he's gaslighting. Sure, Congress is a place where I believe there needs to be term limits. You know, I believe that the Supreme Court should have term limits. Does JD Vance believe that? No, because he's a congressman or a senator. I'm sorry. Does he believe the Senate should have term limits? No, because he's talking about himself then. So what makes him different? What makes JD Vance different? Is it because he's a new rep, the old rep? What makes him different from, for example, Kamala Harris? What makes him different from Cortez? What makes him different from any new rep? What makes him different? You see, I mean, is it just that they're all high class? Cortez is from a middle class family, maybe even less. Does that count for points for JD Vance, or is it just him that you could use those points for? Kamala Harris, you can't use those points for her. What was her father? Some sort of elitist? You know, I mean, I don't get it. Where was her mother? Some sort of elitist? You know, what about Donald Trump's parents? Don't the same rule apply?
Think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue.
They're so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump that they couldn't actually govern. So obsessed with impeaching him. Okay. Did Clinton get impeached? What did Clinton get impeached for? Anybody remember that? Were the Republicans obsessed with impeaching Clinton? He got impeached for what exactly? Let's take a good look at this. What did President Clinton get impeached for? Intern Monica Lewinsky, perjury because of that, obstruction of justice because of that. Yes. The vote was 45 in favor of conviction, 50 against. Obstruction of justice, that was perjury. Obstruction of justice, 50 in favor, 50 against. As a result, Clinton remained in office for the remainder of the second term. The impeachment, however, damaged his presidency and led to significant political fallout. All because of what? Because he lied about having sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. What did Trump lie about? What did Trump do? What are his crimes? What is he being charged with? Is he being charged with sleeping with an intern? No. So how is that an obsession? It's not an obsession. The man lied about more things that have consequences to the entire public, to the entire nation, consequences to the military, consequences to everyone. That's what the man was lying about. The man sat with people, invited people. He sat with the Taliban, invited the Taliban to come meet him after the United States already had made agreements with the government of Afghanistan. That was the agreement. They supported the new government to get up on its feet, to begin to provide services to the people and stabilize it after years of war. What did Trump do? Immediately go meet with the Taliban, the people they were fighting against, the people that didn't want the government. And then he said, yeah, we're going to do a withdrawal on this date. That's our agreement. Didn't talk about how the logistics are going to work. Didn't talk about if it can happen in that amount of time. Nothing, just did it. What else did he do? Took top secret documents out of the White House, and we're talking about thousands of pages, thousands upon thousands, boxes upon boxes. Then he lied about that. No, I didn't have it. Where are they? I didn't do it. I mean, what's J.D. Vance talking about? Again, is this fair? Is he practicing what he preaches? Is he using the same set of standards? It's up to you to judge. Again, if you ask me, for any human being, anybody, if you try to do that to me,
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out you.
because my standard is I don't accept that. Now you can accept it, but just keep in mind, I have universal health care. Although I'm an American citizen, I live outside of the US. My kids will be getting paid to go to school. Why? Because although they're American citizens, they live with their father outside of the US. Housing insurance, same thing. Union job, yeah, I got a union job. Most people do here. And the jobs that aren't union jobs are still regulated. The industries are regulated by the unions. Yeah, pretty safe work environment for me. What's the violence like when I go to work? No, I don't see really any violence. I'm not worried about somebody stealing something from here. Everybody's pretty doing much okay. Not worried about the have-nots coming and robbing me. Why is that? How's that possible? Does that exist on Earth anywhere? I mean, it's just questions to ask. Again, if it was me, my response to something like what JD Vance said would be,
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when.
but what's your response going to be? Let them pat you on your head and talk down to you like you're ignorant? Like you don't know more things? Like you're not capable of fact checking? Like you don't care about the facts, you care about the emotion? This person hurt my feelings yesterday, so that's why I'm going to hold a grudge against them, regardless of what they say right now, because hey, that's the best I can do with some get back. I don't know. That's not what I'm doing. People aren't perfect. Kamala Harris is not perfect. I don't need her to be perfect, but I do recognize the entire record, not just the tiny part I don't like. I recognize Obama's entire record, not just the tiny part that I don't need, that's insignificant to me, particularly. I'm okay with somebody else getting something if I'm getting something too that I want. Yes, I am. I don't know. You tell me if that's wrong or right. Is that a crazy thing? I don't know.
Issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're not probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And
Stop right there. Everybody needs to just research that fact. He did not simply continue. That's not the facts. American citizens need to know. If somebody didn't tell you, it's because you're around misinformed people that are not researching the facts and reporting the facts. You can ask. You could go to ChatGPT and Google it. Donald Biden, he altered the tariffs. See, there's a process for starting tariffs, but if you don't go back to the beginning to start them, you can actually go around it and approach it differently without having to do all the same work over again. Guess how you can do it? By altering them. Yeah, see, you can still alter them, and that's what he did. Some of them he stopped. Others he continued while altering them so that they made better sense. J.D. Vance doesn't want you to know that. He doesn't want to describe it that way because it doesn't sound good. But don't you want accuracy? Or do you want something that just sounds good? I want accuracy. Fuck if it sounds good. I need the details to be able to make a choice. Fuck if it sounds good. JD Vance is he's manipulating you. He's misinterpreting what happened. It's just simple. Biden did not just simply continue the Trump tariffs. He altered them. He stopped some. He continued others that he altered so it fit and worked better for what they thought was appropriate. So when he says when he says Biden continued the tariffs, look into that yourself, y'all. Look into it. Don't just take his goddamn word for it. What? You mean tell me you just gonna take his word for it? Why? Because I don't. I don't just take anybody's word for it. Very few people do I just take their word for it. Do I need to take an elected official's word for it? No. You listen to them. You listen to how detailed they can speak on a topic. You try to understand. How well do they understand this topic? Then you say, okay, what are they proposing? And then you take a chance. You say yay or nay. And when you say yay and they don't deliver, or they didn't attempt to deliver, made no effort to deliver what they say, then you do what? You get rid of them and get a new one. You can do that. You see, you don't have to take What is, you really think it's about taking their word for it? I mean,
And probably surprised issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and
it is a national sales tax. You raise the tariffs, you're not stopping the products from coming in the country. What you're doing is you're adding a tax to it that changes the price that the American citizen has to pay for the good. Very simple. Don't you want to know what the effects of the tariffs are? So why wouldn't you want someone to alter the tariff so it doesn't have the same level of effect? You see, that's really what happened.
Probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And
all right, I'm not going to be here too long. You guys can look at this debate yourselves. Did Biden continue the Trump tariffs? Look what it says. Has largely continued the tariffs that were imposed by President Donald Trump, particularly those on China. That's not a continued the tariffs. Listen to the detail, y'all. You're about to hear some detail that JD Vance just doesn't want to be honest about.
Yes, President Joe Biden has largely continued the tariffs that were imposed by former President Donald Trump, particularly those on China. These tariffs were introduced during the U.S.-China trade war under Trump's administration, targeting hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese goods as part of efforts to address China's unfair trade practices and protect American industries. While there was speculation that Biden might reverse or significantly alter these tariffs, he has opted to maintain most of them. His administration has been conducting a review of the tariffs, but they remain in place as part of broader economic and strategic efforts to counter China's influence and protect American manufacturing. There have been some minor adjustments or exemptions, but the core tariffs, especially the ones on Chinese imports, are still in effect. Biden has framed the continuation of these policies as part of a strategy to rebuild domestic manufacturing and promote economic resilience against global supply chain disruptions. Additionally, the Biden administration has also kept in place tariffs on steel and aluminum and maintained a tough stance on trade with other countries as well. Would you like more specific details on certain tariff areas or sectors?
I would like to know what tariffs he altered and adjusted to better suit his administration's goals. I mean, it's just doing it right live here in your face, not making it up. You can do it yourself if you want to. No one's forcing you to do it. It's just about if you want to know these things or not. I'm only doing it because I like to know what I'm talking about. I don't like to just use talking points. I think the devil is in the detail. I think if you're not willing to look at the detail, you're doing yourself a huge disservice no matter what type of human being you are. Black, white, Jew, Muslim, agnostic, non-Abrahamic, any of that stuff, short, fat, skinny, tall, diabetes, no diabetes, cancer, no cancer, blonde hair, black hair, all of that shit. All you people need to be looking at the details also, not just the generalizations. If this thing is going to get better, if you're going to hold politicians to what they say, if you expect to get anything out of your vote, you must look at the details, not just complain.
Under President Joe Biden, many of the Trump-era tariffs remained in place, especially those targeting China. However, the Biden administration made some adjustments to align these tariffs with its goals of supporting domestic manufacturing, worker rights, and strategic alliances. Here are some key changes. 1. Tariff exemptions on specific goods. In March 2022, the Biden administration reinstated exemptions for certain products that had previously been subject to tariffs under Trump. This primarily involved 352 product-specific exclusions on Chinese goods that were seen as essential to U.S. industries, such as machinery and medical equipment, without significantly threatening U.S. industries. These exclusions were part of an effort to ease costs for U.S. manufacturers and consumers while keeping broader trade pressures on China. Focus on strategic...
I mean, listen, just that right there, you should want to digest, listen to again and again and again, because it is so important for you to ask yourself, why did J.D. Vance not tell you that? Why does he keep saying Biden kept the tariffs? Why? Listen to what Biden did do and why he did it. Why he made the changes in the tariffs. Not just simply keep them. You see what I mean? The devil is in the detail.
Under President Joe Biden, many of the Trump-era tariffs remained in place, especially those targeting China. However, the Biden administration made some adjustments to align these tariffs with its goals of supporting domestic manufacturing, worker rights, and strategic alliances. Here are some key changes. 1. Tariff exemptions on specific goods. In March 2022, the Biden administration reinstated exemptions for certain products that had previously been subject to tariffs under Trump. This primarily involved 352 product-specific exclusions on Chinese goods that were seen as essential to U.S. industries, such as machinery and medical equipment, without significantly threatening U.S. industries. These exclusions were part of an effort to ease costs for U.S. manufacturers and consumers while keeping broader trade pressures on China. Focus on strategic alliances. Biden's approach to tariffs has been more multilateral, working with allies rather than unilaterally. For example, in October 2021, the Biden administration reached an agreement with the European Union to ease tariffs on steel and aluminum that had been imposed during Trump's presidency. Instead of blanket tariffs, the U.S. agreed to a quota system that allowed a certain amount of EU steel and aluminum to enter the U.S.
Instead of blanket tariffs?
This move helped to repair relations with European allies while maintaining protections for U.S. industries. 3. Worker-centric trade policy. Biden's trade policy has emphasized protecting American workers and industries. As part of this, the administration has used tariffs as leverage in trade negotiations, ensuring that labor standards and worker rights are upheld in trade agreements. For instance, in negotiations with Mexico and Canada, Biden's administration has focused on enforcing labor provisions in the USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, while maintaining some tariffs to protect industries like agriculture and automotive production. 4. Adjustments on imports from allies. The Biden administration negotiated deals with other key trade partners, such as Japan and the United Kingdom, to adjust steel and aluminum tariffs. Similar to the EU deal, these negotiations focused on lifting tariffs for these allies while maintaining broader protections against steel dumping from countries like China. 5. China tariffs review. As part of a broader review of the U.S.-China trade relationship, Biden has left in place the bulk of tariffs from the Trump era, but his administration has been more focused on targeted exemptions and trade negotiations with China. The Biden administration is reviewing whether the tariffs are serving U.S. economic and strategic goals, considering both their impact on American consumers and supply chains. Summary. While Biden has maintained many of the tariffs imposed by Trump, his administration has made targeted adjustments to better suit its economic and diplomatic goals. These adjustments reflect an emphasis on worker protection, strengthening alliances, and ensuring a more strategic use of tariffs to support domestic industries and global supply chains, especially in areas critical to U.S. manufacturing.
So, why did this man not tell you that?
A little bit better. Believe, and I've been a United States senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration.
He didn't tell you the part about also reduce the cost for the consumer. See, he left that part out. He also left out the strategic alliances regarding the trade on some of the tariffs that he changed. See, this man just simply is not informing you about the tariffs. I, as a man, simply did. And I'm not even asking for your goddamn vote. But you would give your vote to a piece of shit like that?
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when
I mean, why are you worshiping this piece of shit and you're not worshiping me? I, in this small amount of time, broke down what he didn't tell you about the tariffs. What I told you were facts about the tariffs. I explained to you how he actually is not telling you the truth about what Biden did regarding the tariffs. If you're not willing to tell the truth, why are you talking about it? If you're not willing to give credit where credit is due, why are you talking about it, JD Vance? You see? So the truth of the matter is that the tariffs have been altered, and they've been altered for a reason, because they weren't going, there was going to be negative impact for American business and American consumers. That's why many American businesses rely on certain components to be made from other nations they can make them cheaper, make them better. We don't make everything better. We can, but we can't make everything better unilaterally at one time. You see? It's detailed. We have to decide strategically. What do you do? How do you do it? Small things, small adjustments, So Biden made those adjustments that he didn't agree with, and they're still reviewing more because it's a comprehensive look at the tariffs, not what they just explained, blanket tariffs that have a negative impact as well. So, just getting something through is not the same thing as looking at the effects of it later. You have to be willing to also look at the effects of what you're doing later to determine the good. You have to be willing to do that. You see? So he doesn't want you to do that because he doesn't want you to know anything that they've been doing on your behalf, So on that note, y'all, I'm gonna let everybody go. I'll see you all tomorrow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be back tomorrow. I will be. And thanks for your support. If you're listening to this podcast, support it. By the way, I don't think you're going to find too many African Americans living in the part of the world that I live in that's willing to share some of the information about what's going on where I live for American citizens. So if you like that kind of information, if you find it useful, subscribe, support, share. If you don't, it's okay. move on to the next. I find that I'm having the impact and I'm trying to follow up on that impact. The first documentary that I did was when Al Gore was coming out of office and as vice president and started his media company. And it's literally called The Danish Healthcare System: What Americans Need to Know. That documentary has been seen by over 100,000 people easily in the US, right? On their network, their channels and things like that. And also different channels on YouTube and stuff like that. It's not out there anymore. You might be able to find some clips of it and things like that. So after working, raising my kids a little bit, I've gotten back into doing some of the same things, communicating with my American brothers and sisters about things that affect us as a whole. So I'm going to continue to do that work because I find that it has purpose. So there you have it, folks. I wish everybody a good evening. I hope you at least consider and not rewrite what I said, but just first take a look at the depth before you rewrite what I said. Um, it's really important to take a look at the details to get the point and of what anybody's saying. And you should expect details from leaders. You should expect details from people that want your vote. And you should also want hard work, daily work from those people. And like a lot of folks, some folks are willing to do work for free and not be paid for it. So you should really think about that when you spend your time with folks. And JD Vance obviously wants a buck. He wants $1. He ain't gonna. You think he's gonna do that for free? He's not even informing you why he's getting paid for the shit. And unfortunately, we got to get over that intellectual barrier, because we should be able to handle the details. We should be able to comprehend the details and we should want the details because of that. JD Vance is not challenging your intellect. Peace, y'all.